Hi everyone, welcome to Disaffected Daily, episode 3. I'm going to keep the intro short today, and I'm actually going to keep the whole video pretty short because I'm still trying to figure out a right balance between, you know, content and the schedule that I put it out. So right now, today's episode is going to be more of like a retweet more than anything. But of course, the first thing we have to do is put the meme of the day in its rightful place in the sidebar there. And so the video that I wanted to bring up was a live stream of an interview. Let's watch.
We've seen the movement against racism, white supremacy emerge in March by the tens of thousands across the country since Charlottesville. Where's the anti-war movement?
Well, this is a bigger question that we should take up at much more activity. But I think one of the things we should be looking at here is the timing of this speech, very much focused on changing the discourse, getting the conversation away from Charlottesville. I hope that the anti-war movement, which has been moving very actively in the last 36 hours around this escalation in Afghanistan, but I hope that the anti-war movement are, and I know that they are, among those tens of thousands of demonstrators who have been out in the streets protesting war and racism. That was the sign that I held in a tiny town in Michigan at their last vigil last Sunday night. I had a sign saying no to war, no to racism, because these things are linked. If we look at the rise in Islamophobia, part of the racism that's on the rise in this country under Trump, that doesn't just happen for no reason. It happens because Islamophobia at home is necessary to build support for war against Muslim majority countries at home. War against, whether it's in Afghanistan or Iraq, requires a way of demonizing people who look like that, people who might be that. So the war against immigrants, the war against Muslims in the US is inextricably tied to the rising wars in the Middle East or in South Asia. The wars against black communities in this country are being militarized because we see tanks being brought home from Afghanistan, and the Pentagon says, hey, we got some extra tanks. You want them? And the police force in Ferguson says, hey, yeah, we'll take a tank. That's why we saw a tank on the streets of Ferguson after Mike Brown was killed. Not because the police in Ferguson needed a tank, for God's sakes, but because the Pentagon offered them for free because they were changing tactics in Afghanistan while continuing that war. So we can't separate out opposing war and opposing racism. We have to build movements that cross those silos, that make those connections, and that fight against war and racism, as along with climate and poverty as the three triplets that Dr. King taught us about, along with climate. We have to fight all of them together.
So yeah, I think that was a great answer to that question, and I wanted to echo the idea that racism everywhere is interconnected and linked in a way. The racial injustice stemming from Ferguson is tied to the war in Afghanistan, the refugee crisis in Europe, the immigrant crisis here in the United States, immigrants coming from South and Central America, to even Palestinians, experiencing apartheid. In every one of these struggles, the issue of race is being used to perpetuate the dominance of one group over another. And then second of all is much more direct. It's the idea that a lot of technology and resources and development that get funneled into oppressing one group can come back to be used on another group. Governments are smart, dominant groups are smart. They don't want to reinvent the wheel twice. They will borrow techniques that are developed in other contexts. So, for example, a lot of the techniques that get used in Israeli occupation in Palestine, the techniques used in riot control, those will get used here in the United States. And yeah, so I'm especially wary of people who support the development of military technology for national security abroad, because it ends up coming back home and being used to control the population here. So thanks for joining me for this episode of Disaffected Daily. I want you to subscribe, like, and follow me, but I won't force you to. Do it if you want. Okay, bye.